Okay, so first of all, let's do our safety training. Gloves. Okay, so remember, we don't know what's in the soil, right? Like, you might have been growing in it for 25 years. You might be wanting to grow in it next year, you know? I realize that, you know, you all might be interacting with the soil on a daily basis, but for the purposes of collecting your soil samples, please follow these safety instructions, even if it's your garden and you are always out there not wearing scary black gloves. I just, you know, humor me here, and please follow these safety instructions. So point one is, remember, you don't know what's in your soil. That's why you're here, and that's why you're gonna get it tested. Point two, we have a great example here. Children should not touch the soil or be in the area while you're collecting your samples. But I'm very glad that we have children attending the workshop. That's totally awesome.
I sure hope you don't fight it. That's exactly
And then point number 3 here is to only work with moist soil so that you don't make any soil dust, because in terms of lead getting in our bodies, we're worried about lead on our, you know, eating lead, basically eating soil that's on our hands, eating that, or breathing in the dust. So this soil, you know, we have been blessed with so much rain lately, and the soil here is dry on the surface, but I actually just dug a hole and it's basically wet. It's just like the top millimeter that's dry, so this would be okay. But if you do find that the soil for some reason is actually dry, then it's super important to wet it down. Yeah, exactly, moisten it the day before you go to collect your samples. Also, that's going to make it a lot easier to collect your samples because it will probably be really hard if it's dry. In the previous workshop, somebody actually collected samples from their basement, which is probably not where they were going to grow food. But that soil, it might have been under a porch or something. But anyway, that soil, I think, was probably pretty dry, so that would have been a good time to moisten the soil. If you do find yourself in a situation where you're generating dust, it's better to moisten the soil than to wear a dust mask, although a dust mask could help too. So then also, safety point number 4, while you're collecting the samples, don't touch the soil with your bare hands. I will provide you with some gloves. So take several pairs of gloves when you're picking up your sample bag. They're small, medium, and larges.
Awesome.
So yeah, don't touch the soil with your bare hands. And then when you're all done, just wash your hands really well, including your wrists. And then point number 5, so then when you're done testing, just make sure that the soil is knocked off your shoes. You don't want to track that soil into your house or into your vehicle. And then I realize this sounds really funny if you're gardening already, you know, regularly, but you would want to then change your clothes and wash them separately. You know, change the clothes that you wear while you're sampling the soil and wash them separately.
Wow.
And then lastly, point number 7, so you're going to collect soil into some gallon bags, and you should assume that the outside of the bag is dirty with soil that might be polluted. So then I'm also going to give you, all of your bags are going to be together in a white plastic bag, and that white plastic bag should stay clean. So then you'll put your dirty bags into the clean bag, and then that way you can bring your samples back here to Spiral in 2 weeks, all contained in this clean bag. Unfortunately, those bags seem to be somewhat poor quality, so I apologize for that.
Thank you for bringing all the stuff we need.
Yes,
Well, this is all part of the grant, wasn't it?
it is part of the grant, so thank you to the Foundation for Food and Agriculture.
Right on.
I don't know anything about their political affiliation, but they're funding this.
Yay.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions about safety before we go on to the demo? All right. Thank you for paying
Here's one
attention.
This
lady.
is not a
Oh,
question
yeah.
about safety. I'm wondering if I can film the demo.
Yeah, sure.
I'm actually totally doing that.
Yeah,
Or,
is it-
or I could share
You
it.
can share it.
Yeah, I would love
Then
to
that's even
share it
better.
with you. Thank you.
Oh yeah, can you share it with me?
Yep.
Okay, so when you're collecting your samples, the first step will be to figure out where your site is. So remember, you want to think about your site in terms of the site, the history, and the use. So here, we would think about it being in this rough area, and we are not, we're not within 2 feet of a building, we're not directly adjacent to the street, so this would be a good area in here in terms of just having one history, and say Spiral was going to put another bed in here, so that would be like, a similar future use. This whole area is going to become one future garden bed. So then you would make a rough sketch here, so we would draw, like the outside of this raised bed and draw our area and like maybe make an arrow to the building over there. Say there's a building roughly 12 feet away. And then you will figure out a way to, remember we want to dig 30 holes and take our subsamples from each of those 30 holes. So you want to figure out a way to divide your area into about 30 equally sized, a grid of 30 squares. Some of your areas will be square and that'll be easy. You can sort of do a 6x5 grid. Some of your areas will be long and skinny. Some of them might be, more creative shapes. So just figure out some way to divide it into 30 sub areas that are about equally sized. I'm not going to demonstrate that here, but basically you could, just sort of, basically at this point you could spend a lot of time, or you could just sort of guesstimate and move on. I would suggest to guesstimate and move on to collecting your soils. So, you don't need to get out the tape measure and make sure everything is exactly equally sized. I do have some flags, but you probably won't use flags. So you might just sort of like casually count off the number of steps like that, and then just figure out a way to maybe have like 10 rows of 3 or 6 rows of 5 or something like that. And then you would mark that grid on your map here. And so then step number 3, to collect your samples, you are going to dig a hole 6 inches deep, and hopefully you'll be able to use a trowel or a shovel because the soil is still pretty wet. Hopefully it'll be soft enough that you won't have to go to more extreme measures like using a pickaxe. I've done plenty of sampling with a pickaxe, but it's a lot easier to use a trowel. So in this case, I happen to know that my trowel is 6 inches long. So that's a super convenient way to know that you're going 6 inches deep. Otherwise, maybe you can just have a ruler or just mark 6 inches on a stick just somehow, because remember, we want to be as uniform as possible here. You want everything from all 30 of your holes to be the same. Okay, so I am going to dig the hole here. And as I'm sure you know, digging a hole like this is a great way to break your trowel in terms of bending it back like that. So
You want a shovel?
do be careful with your tools. Okay, so in theory, this is creating a nice hole with 3 sides.
So we have to make 30 of those holes, right?
Yes,
It's a lot of work.
it is a lot of work.
Do it all in one day.
No, you do not have to do it all in one day. Great question. Yeah, so I want, sometimes you'll be able to just, go in with the trowel and you'll end up with a nice hole. That's not happening here, so I am having to do a little bit more work, and I want to remove the soil out of the bottom so then I can actually get to the bottom. So this is just digging the hole, and now to collect the sample. So I have my 3 bags. These bags actually have demonstration soil from the last workshop in them. So then you'll
All
also,
bags will be clear, right?
your bags will be Ziplocs just like this, but without the soil.
Yeah.
And they'll all be labeled, so you all are, your site is gonna have a number, and then you're gonna have 3 bags. So this is 9A, 9B, and 9C. So from each hole, you're going to put 1 spoonful into each bag. Now I apologize, some of the spoons that you have are the budget grade spoons, so they will also bend back over time, so it's good when you're taking your spoonful, it's good to just hold the base of the spoon and not just the handle. And then if you all can come in close here to actually look at this. So I'm actually gonna scrape, so I'm gonna use the spoon and I'm gonna collect 1 spoonful from 3 sides of this hole. So I'm just gonna use the spoon. I wanna start all the way at the bottom and just carefully scrape up the side so that I'm getting soil from the entire 6 inches up to the surface. Then I'm gonna put that spoonful in bag A and then do it again over here. So I moved over, so I did A there, I'm gonna do B over here. And you wanna make sure that the soil going into the spoon doesn't knock the rest of the soil off the spoon. And then, so if this was at 6, if I took A at 6 o'clock, then I maybe took B at 4:30, and then I'm gonna take C up here at 2 o'clock. And put it, whoops, that's bag A, so you don't want to accidentally put it back in bag A. You want to make sure that you're putting C into bag C. So,
Each hole will have 3 bags.
each hole will have a spoonful that goes into bag A, B, and C.
So how many bags we get all together?
3
Just
bags
3?
from
Yes, exactly. You get 3 of these gallon bags.
Of all those 30 holes that we're
Yes.
collecting.
And ideally, you will end up filling this gallon bag about half full of soil.
From all 30 holes?
Yes, all 30 holes. One spoonful from all 30 holes.
Oh, 1 from each of the holes.
Yeah, one spoonful from each of the 30 holes will fill up the bag about half full.
So not 3 from each hole? Each of the 30 holes?
Oh, well, 1 into each bag. Yes. So
So each,
One
each hole
spoonful.
will have 3 separate, you're taking from 3 sides of each hole.
yes.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like I have side A of the hole, side B of the
Yes.
hole, and side C of the hole.
Got it.
So each 30 holes have to have that kind of format.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
So by the time we collect from all 3 of them, we have like a half bag full of, all 30 of the holes, we have like a half bag of soil
Yeah.
from each sides of those holes.
Exactly.
Oh.
Okay, so what if you're trying to sample from raised
Nom
beds
nom.
as well as native soils? How do you?
Yes. So,
Good question.
yes. Yeah, the raised beds would be separate than the native soil, so you would have to choose, or for the purposes here,
Okay.
you know,
You can test 3 bags from each person. Is that?
yeah, and each bag, each set of the 3 bags should be from one area. Like for this workshop, I can test, you know, either your native soil or
gotcha.
your raised bed.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, you know, if you wanted to also test the other one, then you can send it in
Okay, got it.
yourself.
Okay.
And pay for it yourself.
Yes.
And which company were you, besides University of Massachusetts, was there a more local company that you use?
I don't use a local lab for the metals. I send them to a lab in Ohio, Brookside Labs, which for the general public rate, that would be $15 per sample to test for lead.
So that's Brookside Lab in Ohio?
Yes.
That's on the sheet, isn't it? Because you have a lab down there where you're going to send the sample.
Yes.
On one of the sheets. I noticed.
Yes.
That's the one you're talking about?
Yes, it's right here on number 8, Brookside Labs. So you can look them up on the internet.
Oh,
Yeah.
Are there not good labs locally for lead?
There are. There aren't, as far as I know, the labs locally do metals by as a group of several. So this is a lab that I've worked with for a while that will just do lead. But a local lab used to be called, it's a lab in West Berkeley. It used to be called Curtis and Tompkins. Now it's called Enthalpy. And they are local. You don't have to ship. You can just drop the samples off there. I'm not sure what their current pricing is, but they are also on the internet. And the Ecology Center has a big group or a big listing of local labs.
Thank you.
Yes.